Well, at least you're not really
I get
sick.
that. It is very cold outside.
No, no, I don't think it's the I don't think it's the virus. Hopefully, okay. So thank you all for coming to my Firebrands lesson today. I'm going to be talking about how to play the support Firebrand in World vs. World. This isn't going to be helpful if you're trying to play a Guardian in structured PvP. It's not going to be helpful if you're trying to play a It's not going to be helpful if you're trying to play a Firebrand in fractals or raids or anything like that. But I have like over 1,000 hours in Firebrand, and I'm going to try and pass some of that knowledge onto all of you. So the Firebrand's Tomes, it's got 5 chapters, and this lesson plan is going to have 5 chapters. And chapter 1 is Radiant Gear. So let's talk about some of the stats that you might like to have on your gear. I'm going to share the gear I use personally. So as you can see, I'm using Minstrel stats. This is the meta option. It's not going to leave you practically anything in the way of damage, but it is the best effective health because it has 1 stat over Givers, which was going to be the budget option I would recommend. It is Minstrels has Vitality, which is going to give you a higher effective health than Givers does, though Givers will have a little bit more concentration for that boon duration. So I would use Minstrels is my top recommendation. Givers is a good budget option, though healing on the front line is going to be a little bit tougher with that stat. And Clerics is a good hybrid and budget option. That is the one that is power and toughness and healing power, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the Guardian can make use of that power. You're going to be setting symbols on the ground, and those can pulse for decent amounts of damage. And Clerics is a very easy stat to attain, so this is a very good option for people who are new to the role or want to play more of a hybrid role. Let's talk about runes next, and feel free to let me know if I'm going too fast or if you want me to stop and answer a question. So the runes I use are monk runes. Oh, okay, soldiers. Fully soldiers with guardian runes. Yes, you can place any rune into any armor stat. I wouldn't recommend soldiers. You really want to have that healing power, and especially the concentration, because Guardian, support Guardian on World versus World, and specifically support Firebrand, is very reliant on the boons that it shares in order to grant the invulnerability from things like stability and resistance and Aegis. So you want those to last for as long as possible without hitting that concentration soft cap. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, runes. I like to use monk runes because they're the best healing option. You can get a 10% effective outgoing healing stat very easily by just sharing boons like you would be normally. Water runes are something that you can get on the trading post that aren't half bad. They also come with they come with a little bit more boon duration, but a little bit more than you actually need. Durability runes are something you can get from playing World versus World through the commendations trait point thing. It's easier to learn the ropes on durability runes for a lot of support classes because they give you a lot of extra tankiness, and on hit you are sharing some very key boons, so they're a good option. And then looking more in the budget options, there are flock runes and mercy runes. So the flock is going to give you vitality and healing power, and the mercy runes are going to give you a little bit more toughness, making it easier to heal on the front lines, and they are very helpful for reviving allies as well. They're something I see people use in GVG pretty often. You can't actually get monk runes on the TP. The easiest way to get a monk rune is through the Tyrian exchange vouchers that you can get out of Black Lion chests. but you can just get them by running the Ascalonian Catacombs dungeon. And if you guys are looking for help getting through that dungeon, I can do some dungeon runs with you later. It's no big deal. The dungeon's totally easy. You'll have the runes before you know it, I promise.
That would be great.
Marcus, I have 6 superior runes of water. I didn't put them on there. I didn't hear you mention those.
Yes, water, those are good runes to use. They're
Okay.
probably the next best thing after monk runes.
Okay.
Those were the ones where I was like, they're good, they give you a lot of concentration, maybe a little bit more concentration than you actually need.
Okay. I can get the monk runes because I do have those Tyrian exchange vouchers, so I'll get the monks.
Okay,
I
right
have
on.
minstrels. I just stat swapped, that's what I was doing. So I have minstrels, but I don't have any runes on them or anything.
You'll find that it's astoundingly easy to. You can see on the Glenskaze masks that I showed you, the 10% effective healing. The healing effectiveness goes up when you share a boon. To get those 10 stacks is actually very easy because let's say you pop Stand Your Ground. Since I was next to 5 of you, that's all 10 boons right there. I gave 5 of you stability and retaliation. So that's 10 boons right off the bat. And you've already got all 10 stacks. It's very, very good synergy for the Firebrand. Let's talk about weapons next. We're not going to talk about weapon skills just yet. That's going to come in a little bit. But I'm going to link you the weapons I use. I always recommend carrying a staff with you as one weapon set. The staff is really good for burst healing. It's got that blast finisher on it that procs very often, or cools down very often, I meant to say, that you're going to be using to set up some engages if you're stacking stealth. But again, I'll talk about the weapons again in a little bit. I also like to use the Mason Shield, or optionally, you could use the Axe and Shield. And if you are using the Axe, you are sacrificing the Aegis and regeneration that is applied by the mace, but you are dealing a little bit more damage, and you're sharing Fury. So this can be very good if you're playing a guard that uses those cleric stats. But the big pull for the Axe, and that's a little bit of a pun there because Axe 3 is in fact a pull, and it's a little bit tough to exactly gauge how far the pull goes. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but all pulls are extraordinarily useful in World vs. World. Let us discuss weapon sigils. And you'll see that on both sets, I'm actually using the same pair of sigils, which is Transference and Energy. The Transference sigils are good. It is just a flat healing power increase. And the Energy sigils are going to give you the endurance, like the endurance refund. Half of your endurance bar comes back on a weapon swap, which can actually proc as well when you are stowing tomes. So you are swapping back to that weapon upon stowing a tome, and you get to dodge again. And dodging is very key as a Firebrand because of one specific trait that I recommend for all builds. It is actually one of the minor traits in the honor line. It is selfless daring. One thing that sets Support Guardian apart from other classes is that you should get into the habit of dodging very often, because when you do, it is a decent-sized burst hill in an area of effect. So you want to dodge often, not just for yourself, but aggressively reposition with your dodges. Jump as you do to get the leeway from ground targeting, and the mobility boost. Oh, sorry, there's a guild chat, and I'm not sure if it's trying to come to the lesson or to the pre-raid. Anyone's welcome to show up to the lesson, though I want to let people know that we are recording the lesson at the moment. So if you aren't comfortable with that, just like let me know and I'll stop the recording. But back to selfless daring. You want to get into the habit of dodging often because you want your endurance to be low when you're swapping weapons and stowing tomes, so that the energy sigil isn't a waste of a slot. Because if you aren't going to get the endurance back from the energy sigil, you could just run like concentration in there and get more leeway with your boon times. Yes, you can get both of these sigils on the trading post, energy and transference. So another thing that you can do when you dodge, you get this mobility boost from the dodge. It increases your movement speed by just a little bit for like a fraction of a second. And that can be really helpful for like aggressively repositioning towards allies in need. And this can give you like the option, once you're on top of that ally, to support them in a myriad of different ways, either by like popping a shield around them, or by like blasting them with one of your mantras, or giving them some shields. And one final thing that I want to touch on with regards to the dodging is that if you press the dodge key and jump at the same time, you'll notice that I jump and dodge at the same time, which will give you a little bit of leeway for that those ground targeting abilities. So you see a lot of red circles on the ground. You're gonna jump and dodge and get it down just right, and aggressively reposition yourself towards your allies. Don't just use the dodge for yourself, use it for your team. So
By the
some...
way, that's a lot harder than it looks.
You like the way that where it looks?
It's a lot harder than it looks. I've tried it before.
Oh, the jump and dodge thing? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's even harder to do when you're actually in the thick of it. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about some alternate sigils that you can use. Concentration. Like I said, starting to get into the territory of a little bit more concentration than you actually need. So you'd probably be more efficiently used on like energy or transference, like I said. But alternatively, there is a weapon sigil that one of our own suppliers likes to use, Kataris. She uses Benevolence Runes, and that can actually give you an increase in healing power up to 12.5% instead of the 10% that's granted by transference. However, you need to maintain 5 stacks, or 25 stacks, of that like buff that you get. You know how some weapon sigils, like you kill a player, you get 5 stacks of this thing, and it increases one of your stats? It's one of those. So needless to say, it's kind of unreliable. You fall off a cliff, you lose all your stacks. You yo-yo in combat once, you go up, down, and immediately rally up, and all your stacks are gone. You like jump into a water and forgot that you don't have the sigils on your water weapon and lose all your stacks. It's a nightmare. I like to just have the flat 10% from transference. And another thing about the gear, if you're fortunate enough to be able to get Ascended gear, I recommend the healing infusions. Let me quickly share my builds with you guys. This seems like the most appropriate time to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is share like the meta sort of Firebrand build. So this is what most people are going to be expecting you to run in comped groups. You notice that it has a lot of stability share. It has that stand your ground shout. It has the hallowed ground consecration. It has the elite mantra that is an on-demand stun break and share stability. That is the key thing that comped groups are going to expect out of you as a Firebrand, is to have the stability on the engage and then to have it reapplied throughout the fight. So you want to... This is another thing that sets Firebrand apart from other support classes. It is very low APM. What do I mean by that? actions per minute. If you're playing a support scrapper, you're almost always going to be doing something. Popping gyros, bandaging yourself, blasting and doing whirl finishers in your fields. Guardian is slow. It is deliberate. You can't afford to over-leverage yourself, or else you start to risk not having those key abilities when you really need them. So I'm going to share with you now my uncomped build, and that'll take me just one moment here. This is the build that I like to use for uncomped groups. Now, this one is a little bit more difficult to play, but you're able to squeeze a lot more healing out of it, and you're able to cover the tomes more often if there aren't many other guardians in your group. So you are sacrificing the elite mantra to play this build, and instead you're taking the elite meditation. So the elite mantra is an on-demand stun break, and it also shares stability in that comb in front of you. When I say uncomped, I mean like the team composition isn't rigid. Like in Sky, we run uncomped. You come and you play what you like, but in comped groups, they may be like, we want this party to have one Firebrand, one Scrapper, one Scourge, one Herald, etc., etc. So if you're playing like in a meta group where they're like separating the parties and trying to share the boons evenly, that first build I shared is the kind of stability that they want you to bring. The second one is better if it's like a sort of more fast and loose scenario. You just kind of play what you want, because this one allows you to refresh your tomes with the elite meditation, allowing you to activate them again. If a fight is going on for longer than you expected, you need the tomes again because there aren't any other Firebrands in the squad that can cover them. So you can just refresh your tomes and pull them again and go through all your skills. I also really like Bow of Truth. I like it. It's like the consecration from the last build that I shared, where you place it and it's static on the ground. And that makes it a little bit harder to use because generally in World vs. World, groups are moving around pretty fast, trying to pendulum around each other, trying to cut into one another's backlines. So anything that you place on the ground and set and forget is going to be a little bit harder to like predict where exactly you want to place it. But I like Bow of Truth because it's like being able to use the fourth skill from the Tome of Resolve on demand. Like a big, just like healing pool area of effect. It's really nice. And one thing that the uncomped build does as well is take Pure Voice instead of the last trait in that skill. I can look at the names. But the comped build is using this Force of Will, which increases the healing output and your vitality. But Pure Voice in the uncomped build is going to help you refresh, or is going to make the cooldown shorter for that Stand Your Ground shout that's in both builds. Stand Your Ground is an extremely important shout, and it's really helpful in the uncomped build to have the cooldown lower on it, because all of a sudden it's one of your only sources of stability, as opposed to in the comped build where you have the consecration for it and the mantra for it. So those are my thoughts on the two builds that I like to use, but overall, I want to encourage flexibility, because there's a lot of cool stuff you can play around with as the Guardian. There are a lot of neat utility skills you can use, like there's this reflect wall that a lot of people like to use. If you're trying to like get the positioning down and you're not there just yet, this merciful intervention is cool because you can like shadow step to someone and heal them. I've gotten a lot of cool utility out of this like retreat shout. That's one that's really good for stacking Swift, and since it shares Aegis, if you happen to be using the trait that shares quickness when you share Aegis, all of a sudden you're sharing a ton of boons on this shout that has 2 charges. So, try to identify what's killing your team. Is it condition pressure? Do you need to respond with more Condi removal? Are they getting CC'd? Do you need to respond with more stability? If it's a lot of power damage, maybe it's something that you can block with Aegis and then try and out-heal. It's trying to gauge these threats and respond to them that's key to playing Guardian. Okay, so as I always do whenever I give the lesson, I spent way longer than I needed to talking about the gear and build options. And now we're moving on to Chapter 2, which is Optimized Settings. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to open the Options menu in Guild Wars 2 here. If you've never tweaked your camera settings before, when you open the Options menu and you scroll down a short ways, you'll start to see these different sliders. That slider on the very bottom of the camera options, Field of View, I like to turn that all the way to the right. And Vertical Position Far, I like to also turn all the way to the right. And that means when you zoom all the way out, you get to see a very wide area around you. This will make it so that you can get as much information about what's going on around you as possible, because knowledge is power. Information is key. You need to know what skills are in play. Like, you see the thick red outline from the Purging Flames, and you know that a Burn Guard is on you. Or maybe, like, you see that one Malik stance thing that Revenants do, where they shoot out those tendrils, and you know that you need to like give your teammates resistance. So having that information about what's going on around you is really, really critical. And speaking of information, it's also helpful to know who needs the support the most, which is why I like to let me find the option really quickly. I just want to make sure I can show you where it is. Okay, it is under User Interface, and down on the checkmarked list, there is Always Show Party and Squad Health Bars. I check both of those. And the reason I do that is because trying to play Guardian without seeing the health bars of teammates around you is like trying to play Guard with a blindfold on. It's not going to work out well. You're not going to know who needs the healing the most. And beyond that even, I like to check thick party health bars as well, because that will make the health bars for members of your party thicker and allow you to, at a glance, identify who is in your party. This is really helpful for comped groups that are like separating parties into teams of 5. Because you can kind of think of those 5 people as like your assignment. Those are the people that the squad you're running with is expecting you to keep safe, assuming that they are staying with the group and on tag. So I like to have those thick party health bars, but if you want to do thick squad health bars as well, that's also a very, very valid option. Sometimes the thinner ones are hard to see. You want all of them to pop out at you. That's also totally cool. One thing that I like to do in my options menu to give me a little bit more information, and we are still on the general options page, which is the first tab that you open. It's the one that looks like the wrench on the left side of the screen. Scrolling all the way to the bottom, there is a competitive section. And in this competitive section, I like to set World vs. World simple nameplates to none. What this will do is you won't have the colored Dorito thing anymore telling you what team people are on. Instead, it will show a very long nameplate displaying their server and what rank they are. So you'll be able to tell, like, at a glance, like what rank someone is, whether they're like a platinum colonel or like a bronze footman or whatever, and you'll be able to see the name of their server. And it's very helpful to have this nameplate very wide, because it gives people away when they're trying to hide behind things. They're hiding behind something out of stealth, and you see their nameplate sticking out. And you know that there's someone behind that conveniently shaped rock. And I think that's very helpful information to have. So I'm going to actually close the options menu now, because there's one last thing. Oh, quick review of the camera. Okay. In the options menu, all you have to do is open options, and we're still on the general options page, so I'm just scrolling down a couple of ticks, and there is a category called camera. I like to set vertical position far all the way to the right, and field of view all the way to the right. And what that will do is, when you zoom out all the way, you get to see everything around you. This is helpful for peeking over walls. This allows you to see what as many people are doing around you at any given time as possible, so you get as much information as you can. One last thing I'm going to talk about with regards to settings is the squad bar. Okay, so you have this like a party menu. It shows you how many members are in your squad. You can see like a little grid. It has everyone's name in it. You see that Firebrand symbol over and over again there. Oh, it's a beautiful sight. So, the little part that looks like a commander tag, it says party and then P in brackets when you mouse over it. If you click on that, sorry, there is the option to view as grid, which is likely checked for you. If you uncheck that, it will display up to 10 people on the side of your screen with the names, the class displayed. It'll show you the rank of the person. It'll show you their health bar, and most importantly, this will show you what buffs and conditions they have on them at any given time. If you are in a squad with 10 people or fewer, or if you are in a party with 10 people or fewer, this is an invaluable tool which will allow you to see what buffs your allies already have, which buffs they could use, and how many conditions they're suffering under at that moment. Yes, so someone just shared quickness with a bunch of us. It's perfect. It shows up right on the bar like that. Super helpful.
Where do we find this option?
So there's a part of the squad panel that looks like a little commander icon, and you click on that, and there is a view as grid option, which is checked by default. So if you uncheck grid view when you are in a squad or party of less than 10 people, it gives you this really helpful info. Were there any more questions about gear or settings specifically? Okay, I'm going to move on to Chapter 3, Righteous Purpose. The righteous purpose of the Guardian is to share boons. You are trying to anticipate and protect your teammates. So you have tools that will allow you to heal, but not as much, right? So you got the Holy Bolt, you got like this Healing Rain, and you got your Tome of Resolve, and man, those can put out a really solid amount of healing. But it's not infinite healing. And you're going to be a lot better off if you're able to prevent that damage rather than needing to go back and heal it. And there are a couple of tools, a couple of boons that we're going to use to try and prevent that damage. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Aegis. And the way that you share Aegis is through your healing mantra, through Shield 4, through Mace 3, and through the last skill on the Tome of Courage. Here are all of those skills, except for the Tome of Courage one. We'll talk about tomes later. Aegis is important because it protects allies from attacks. So someone tries to hit an ally of yours with Aegis, instead it shows up blocked for them instead, and the attack doesn't go through. This also removes the Aegis. If you stack Aegis, it only stacks duration. It doesn't give them multiple hits. You should reapply Aegis often, but stacking it isn't going to be as helpful as reapplying it. So Aegis is important because it protects allies from attacks, which cancels the conditions and crowd control they would normally inflict. So apply Aegis often where attacks are frequent and parties' health bars are low. You see a group of a group of squad mates who have low health, throw Aegis onto them. Another reason you want to do this to people who have low health is because you'll notice that in both of the Firebrand builds I recommended, it utilizes this trait, Pure of Heart. So when your ally gets attacked with Aegis, and the Aegis blocks the attack, not only will it make the attack not deal any damage to them, but they will be healed instead. Yes, you can yeet Aegis with your shield. You can throw it a great distance with Shield 4. You can really slap it onto people. And I think that even goes a little bit farther than the mantras. Maybe? Range 600, range 450. Aha! I was right! It does go a little bit further. Okay, let's talk about another really important boon. This is stability. Restoring reprieve. Shoot. Reprieve. Oh, that is, I'm sorry, that's the skill. If you have the mantra of Solace, or the healing skill mantra already charged, that's the skill it turns into. That's like when you activate the heal skill mantra. There we go. Okay, so stability. That elite mantra that I shared from the Compt group is going to come in handy here. Also, stand your ground and a couple more of the courage skills. I'm going to quickly share the stand your ground and the elite mantra, which is that portent of freedom. Stability is important because it allows allies to resist crowd control. Right now, we are in a very crowd control heavy meta. People love to run pulls, they love to run stuns, they love to run gravity wells, but this makes sense, because when you're trying to eliminate another team in World vs. World, there are a couple of steps you have to go through. First off, you have to remove their boons. You have to remove the things that are protecting them, like Aegis, stability, protection, resistance. All of these things will make it very, very hard for you to actually deal damage to the enemy team. And the next thing you need to do is crowd control them. You need to pull them all together, you need to bunch them all up, you need to bring them back towards your melee ball, and then, and only then, can you coordinate a damage ball to effectively wipe an enemy team. So you need to go through those 3 steps. And that is why stability is so important to keep up. You need to reapply this, especially if you are in a comp group and running this build with the elite mantra and the hallowed ground consecration. It's very important to keep the stability up. You want to apply stability shortly before the engagement begins. So when you are about to run up to the enemy team, the push has started, you want to pop stand your ground, probably about 3 seconds or so before you actually reach them. Because when you are approaching the enemy team, they are going to try and stop you. They're going to try and put up lines to keep you from reaching them. They're going to try and knock you away with knockbacks. They are going to put pulls behind you and yank you away. And so for the push to be successful, your allies need that stability. This is another reason why on a push it's good to open up Tome 3 and try and grant stability that way. So you want to apply stability shortly before the engagement and keep it active while allies are in danger. One last boon we're going to talk about is resistance. And this is going to exclusively come from this Chapter 4. Yep, someone's already demonstrating it. Of the Tome of Courage. So this is going to set pulsing resistance on the ground with no target limit. And this means that when you place that skill on the ground, as long as there isn't a Spellbreaker bubble on top of it, it is going to keep reapplying that resistance. And your allies are going to be immune to conditions while they're standing on top of it. It doesn't last forever. The cooldown is a little bit shorter than the cooldown is a little bit longer than the amount of time it actually stays on the ground. But if your concentration is high enough, then the amount of time it pulses for will when I say pulsing resistance, this is the skill I'm putting down on the ground, and I'm trying to protect everyone from the Condi pressure. So it takes a little bit longer to refresh than it stays on the ground for, but if your concentration is high enough, the pulsing will mean that you'll still have a little bit of resistance when it goes away, and you'll have that leeway before you're able to set the skill again. Pulsing resistance with the skill will make allies standing on the AoE immune to conditions, so watch out for the Condi pressure and try and respond to it. You can also clear conditions, though Guardian isn't the best role for clearing conditions. You can use the Mantra of Lore. You can use a couple of skills from your Tome of Resolve, so Tome 2, skills 2 and 5. But we'll go over the we'll go over the tomes a bit more in a little bit. There is a trait called Absolute Virtue, which I think I have recommended for both of the builds, which clears conditions when you draw Tome 2. So when you pull that tome out, it will clear conditions. Additionally, if you need to clear conditions in an area, you can blast a light field. You have a blast finisher on your staff, so all you have to do is set down a light field. You can do that with your mace by pressing the second skill. You can do that with your staff by setting the third skill. And then all you have to do is use that Holy Strike on it, and it will cleanse conditions. Do you guys want to give it a try? Yeah, of course you do. Okay, so hold on to your blast finisher on your staff for a little bit. We're going to give it just a little bit to cool down. That's the Holy Strike, skill 2. Get ready to set it on your feet when I say now, okay? Go ahead and use that Holy Strike on your feet. Pretty neat. So that's the way you can cleanse conditions. If you have a bunch of skills on cooldown, kind of a funny way you can do it is your line of warding is actually a light field. So if you put it right on that skinny bit there, yep, you can area cleanse condition. Kind of funny. I think it's meant that combo field is more meant for people to like send projectiles and leap finishers through it, but that's not gonna stop me from blasting it for Condi removal. What are you talking about? Okay, so that's well and good, but how do you actually heal people as a Guardian? Okay, so for that, we're going to turn to the weapon skills. Let's start with the staff. So the staff is for mostly burst healing and utility. You want to have your staff out when you're like preparing to engage, basically, because a lot of people are going to ask you to empower before a push, and a lot of people will try to stack stealth before a push. So you want to have that staff out.
Empower is.
I'm sorry?
I thought Empower was a World vs. World Siege thing. That's what Empower is.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So they will ask you to empower before a push, or they'll ask you to stack stealth, which is when all of the scrappers start popping their stealth gyros, and then just like I did with the Bow of Truth a little bit ago, all you have to do is use a blast finisher on that smoke field when you see it, and that'll give area stealth. So staff is really good to have out when you're getting ready to engage, and when you're in the thick of it, and quickly just talking about healing. Okay, so the auto attack chain for the staff is unremarkable, but Holy Strike is cool because it refreshes really quickly. You can set it on people who are out of position. If you take the cast time into effect, it takes a little bit to cast. So if someone's like running and you're trying to heal them with that, put it a little bit in front of them in the direction they're running in. Symbol of Swiftness. If you have any power in your build from clerics, the symbols pulse damage, which can add up pretty nicely. So try and drop that on lords and NPCs and stuff. It gives you the swiftness, which is nice, but the combo field and the damage are really where it's at. Empower is good. Be aware that Empower will lock you into place while you're using it. So if you start to use it, you're going to be standing there until either the ability ends, or you can end it prematurely if you have a stow weapon key bound. If you bind a key to stow your weapon, you can stow it while you're in the middle of your Empower to cut it short and start moving around again. And then, of course, there is the Line of Warding. This is one of your main CCs. You can use this to chop roofs in half. You can set it on lords to break their break bar. You can put it in front of roamers to stop them from running away. It's really nice. And when you're in the thick of things, like the melee ball, you're going to want to pull out that Mason Shield. Because with the Mason Shield, it has a really nice attack chain where the last move in it does a good amount of healing to people in a radius around you. It has this Symbol of Faith, where you can set that on the ground and it will pulse regeneration for targets. This means that and since the cooldown for this is so short with the that like reinvigorated bulwark trait or whatever that I recommended for both builds, you can stack regeneration on people with this. You can roll it. You can if you stand on top of someone and you just keep using this skill, whatever it's off of cooldown, they will keep regenerating. It is really nice. Mace 3. This is kind of like the Spellbreaker counterattack. You start channeling it and someone hits you, and you do this really cool thing where you spin around and share ages with people around you. It's a really, really nice one to break out like when you're in the melee ball. Yeah, the mace is great. The shield. So this one, when you do the wave with 4, you apply protection and Aegis, which you gotta have respect for protection. That's a minus 33% incoming damage. Wow. That one is a very underrated boon. And then one of my personal favorite skills, which is Shield 5. It is a knockback. It reflects, not reflects, but blocks missiles. It also, if you cancel it prematurely, it will do like it'll detonate and heal nearby allies. So if you want to do a burst, I'll talk about that in just a second. But if you want to do a burst heal, all you have to do is press 5 like twice, and it'll do a nice little burst heal around you from popping the shield. The dome shield, it will block missiles. So this will still leave you vulnerable to melee. This will still leave you vulnerable to ranged attacks which aren't projectiles. It'll leave you vulnerable to ground targeting and to siege. But one thing you might not have known that the Shield of Absorption can deflect or absorb is siege disablers. So if someone pops out of stealth, there's this little like green and purple object they're holding in their hand. That is the disabler. You'll see them huck a little bolt of lightning towards your siege, and if you are quick and your reaction is on time, you can block it with your shield. But don't get frustrated if it doesn't work out right away, because it can be very difficult to do. And some people are very cautious about it. They'll come up to you in stealth, they'll get right up to the siege, and they'll pop it right on. And, you know, what can you do then? When it comes to healing, another thing that's important to consider is your mantras. Oftentimes, if I'm running more than one mantra, like the healing one and the Condi Clear one, or the elite one, you can just like pop the healing and regeneration one on someone at the same time. That'll give them Aegis, that'll give them regen, they'll like block and heal from their next attack, they'll recover from some conditions. It's really nice. You might as well just hit them with both of it. You can be a little bit more conservative with that elite mantra, because stability, you want that to be shared in absolutely key places, and the charge recovery cooldown is slower for the elite mantra as well. When you're healing people, you want to use those weapon skills, you want to use those mantras, and you want to use your traits. Those are pure of heart and selfless daring chiefly among them, so you want to make sure that you're dodging into people, activating those weapon skills, sharing Aegis on them so that they heal after attacks. This is how you protect people. You also want to bring CCs. You want, so I already showed you the line from the staff, I showed you that bump from the shield, you may even have an axe with you for pulling, but another good one is Tome 1, activate skill 3. That creates like a fiery vortex that pulls players towards the center of it. Even if you pop this on a group, and it shows up invulnerable on a bunch of people because they all had stability, it is still a very good use of a page, because I can think of literally no warrior or necro or elementalist player who would not be happy to see the stability of the enemy team ripped in an AoE around, It's just a really great use of a page if you have Tome 1 open. And speaking of tomes and pages, let's start talking about those, as I have actually 8 minutes left. So let's start with Tome 1. It's the Tome of Justice. You don't want to have this one out for too long, because damage really isn't your forte, but you can pull this one out, and you can throw the first skill onto, Siege, and Lords, and hostile NPCs, and enemy downs. So you can just really throw that one out there. Chapter 2, Igniting Burst. This is a good one to throw onto Tower Lords to break the break bar, but it's not going to be super helpful against players, because it does give them that weakness debuff, which sometimes makes them fumble attacks, and they get glancing blows instead. But you're really just better off giving your allies Aegis instead if you're trying to block attacks. I already talked about the Fiery Vortex pull. Scorched Aftermath, Chapter 4. This is a really good one to set on top of a bunch of enemy downs, because this will pulse damage. It'll keep cleaving those downs, right? So they won't have the opportunity to start healing themselves, because whenever you're trying to heal yourself and you're down, you get the healing gets interrupted. So if there's a bunch of enemy downs, try and drop that skill on top of them. This last one, you can pop this and it'll share a buff with allies that make their attacks apply burning ticks, and that burning damage actually gets credited towards you. So you'll get to see how much burning damage it does. I think the Epilogue usually works out to deal more damage than Scorched Aftermath does, but I really like to save the Ashes of the Just for Tower Lords and stuff, where everyone's beating on one enemy, and you don't get a lot out of the area of effect of the Scorched Aftermath, but you do get to see the burning ticks climb really high because everyone's smacking the same enemy. So that's Tome 1. And Tome 2, like I said, when you draw this one, you will cleanse conditions because of Absolute Virtue. The Chapter 1 Desert Bloom heals significantly and has no cooldown, so you could chuck this onto someone repeatedly if they're getting hammered. If someone's taking a bunch of damage, you can keep throwing that on them, and they might even be able to sustain through a decent power bomb. This Chapter 2 Radiant Recovery is really underrated in my opinion. It'll remove conditions. Bear in mind, we're in the guild hall right now and not in World vs. World. It's powered down in World vs. World and will only remove 2 conditions, but it affects 5 people, and the casting time is so short and the cooldown is so short. Just remember that it will not heal people unless they're suffering from conditions, right? Because it heals per condition removed and doesn't really have any base healing. So try and use that where there's actually condition pressure happening. Chapter 3, Azure Sun. This one, you could feasibly use it to like heal someone out of position, and it grants Vigor, which is really good for you because you heal on a dodge. So if you're able to dodge more often, either through Vigor, or maybe there's a Spellbreaker in your party that has that one shout, the healing shout that gives you endurance regeneration. If you can dodge more often, and that'll help you with your healing. But typically you'll want to save the pages of that tome for more important skills like Chapter 4, which you can set down. And now bear in mind, this one's stationary. So more often than not, you'll set that one down and your Zerg is on the move and they'll just run outside of it and you won't get a ton of impact from it. So try and use this Chapter 4 one when you're fighting like in a stationary spot. You want to make sure you only have so many pages for each tome pull. So you want to try and make each pull, each page as efficient as possible. And the epilogue for this tome is Eternal Oasis, which converts conditions on allies into boons. So I think it converts 3 of them in World vs. World. And it also shares a boon where in World vs. World I think it is 20% outgoing heal effectiveness, which will stack from all the stuff you're getting from your trades and your gear and really let you pump that healing out there. So if you're going to use this epilogue on someone and then drop like the healing arrows on them and give them that healing pool, oh man, their health's gonna shoot right up. And as I'm like actually running out of time here, I'm gonna talk about Tome 3, where and remember, you're using the trait that lets you keep the virtue passives even though you've popped these. So don't be afraid to pull these out, but try not to over leverage yourself and try not to blow through it all too quickly. Remember, we're trying to play deliberately here. But Tome of 3, your most important tome. The Virtue of Courage is, Unflinching Charge is the first chapter. It is going to grant stability and swiftness. So this is something you can just throw onto someone to keep your stability up. The swiftness will help them if you're like chasing after a roamer or something. Chapter 2, Daring Challenge. The taunt is really situational for this. Sometimes you can like catch people that don't have stability if you need a CC desperately and like they're routed. Sometimes you can catch them, but there are so many like important skills in this tome that you're really going to want to dedicate these pages to things like the Stalwart Stand I showed you earlier. This is Chapter 4. It's that pulsing resistance, but we already talked about that a little bit. So let's talk about Chapter 3, which is this Reflect Dome. It reflects missiles, so like I said, you're still vulnerable to melee, ranged non-projectiles, ground targeting abilities, and siege. But if you're able to weave in and out of these bubbles, that'll make it more difficult for rangers because they'll naturally come into the bubble to try and shoot you with arrows, but you are always keeping a part of the bubble between you and them. I'm sorry, I missed who was talking just then.
Just saying happy reset.
Oh, happy reset. And one more ability in this tome is Epilogue Unbroken Lines. This is another unique buff one. It increases the toughness of nearby allies and also shares Aegis and Stability, which are two of your key boons you might realize. Wow, this is an extremely effective tome. You can grant like near invulnerability to allies by protecting them from conditions, protecting them from power attacks and crowd control, reflecting ranged attacks that enemies are trying to put on you. So really pay this tome some respect. I'm going to go just a little bit further over my time because we are on the final chapter of this lesson. We had Chapter 1, which was our Radiant Gear, Chapter 2, Optimized Settings, Chapter 3, which was our Righteous Purpose, Chapter 4, the Sacred Lore, and now we are at our Epilogue, Straying from the Path. So, what are some mistakes that you can make? Over-leveraging yourself especially is one. If you are using abilities like the Stalwart Stand to grant resistance when there isn't enough condition pressure to warrant it, you may not be able to access that skill later when you really need it. And if you burn all of your pages before the enemy team has even like started their bomb, then you can really like find yourself like without any way to respond to the more dire situations. So over leveraging yourself is something you definitely want to avoid. This playstyle is slow, it's deliberate, it's preventative. You want to take in as much information as you can, and then find the things in your kit that will allow you to respond to these threats. And you want to find them quickly, and you don't want to just like blow parts of your kit when you don't need them. So try to stay with the group and the tag, and weigh the risk of hero moments. So someone gets caught out of position, and they're about to be stomped. You want to go, you want to stray from the group, and you want to interrupt them with the knockback from your shield bubble before they can get the stomp off. You want
Hey,
to...
Markus.
Hey there.
Hey, how long you got? I'm just checking on you.
I won't be going for more than like 5 more minutes.
No problem. Thanks.
Right on. Okay, you want to try and stay with the group and weigh the risk of hero moments. If you go over to prevent that stomp, and the rest of your team gets bombed and killed while you're away, that is no bueno. That is something you don't want to be the root cause of. So, the bigger a fight is, the more reluctant you should be to step away from the group to just save one person. And one more thing I want to talk about in this epilogue, Straying from the Path, don't let yourself fall early. If you're pushing up on the front line and you need to fall back and recover some skills and recover some health, do it. Don't let yourself like fall down early in the fight, because your team needs you. They need you in a bad way. Like, they will flop over and die if you're not giving them these boons. And if it comes down to it, pop it, don't drop it. That's like something people used to say in Team Fortress with like the medic Uber charge or whatever. Yeah, absolutely, if you have to save yourself, pull Tome 3. Like, if pulling Tome 3 and saving yourself with it right now is the difference between dying and being able to make it back to your group and use Tome 2 for them when they need it, like, it goes without saying that, yeah, you absolutely want to use these skills to, like, protect yourself. Because people, they're gonna come for you. They're gonna realize that you're the healer, and they're gonna try and pull you out of the group, and they're gonna try and mess you up, man. You gotta be ready for it. So, don't be afraid to look out for number 1 if it comes down to it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so were there any more questions that anyone had?
So, when we're using various different skills, does it, like we have 7 firebrands there right now. What does it make it 7 times more powerful, more healing, more whatever?
So, with it, I think you're talking about like the ratios for like how many group members do you want to be firebrands? Because of course, like the more firebrands and like healing you have, the like having multiple people healing you at the same time won't make the healing less effective. It'll just be more healing, which is totally great. Normally, a good thing you like to see is about 1 in every 5 members of the squad is a firebrand, because that way everyone gets stand your ground when the engagement begins, which is invaluable. It's one of the most powerful skills in World versus World. Don't let stand your ground fall to the wayside. One issue I had when I was just starting out is I was saving it too much and I wasn't popping it when I had to, and that was something I had to get over. But yep, one firebrand to each party is good. If you got like double parties, like 2 firebrands in one party, just like try and cover different tomes. Like agree with the person you're in the party and like, hey, when the fight starts, I'll pull tome 3 and you can pull tome 2. Like
Okay.
something like that can go a long way to make sure that you're covering different aspects of the kit. Because there are some things like Aegis where you stack it up and it only stacks duration, and no matter how many times you put Aegis on the same guy, it's still only going to be blocking 1 attack until you reapply it. So
Yeah. Right. So, because I mean, I was just wondering if sometimes we're attacking a Zerg and they just won't die, right? You just can't kill
yeah,
them. And I'm wondering, is it because they're stacking? Like,
it's
can we keep
because
our
they
whole
have
Zerg alive?
very robust support. So
Mm.
as a guardian, you're going to be able to like reapply these boons, but you're going to be countered by boon removal. There's like ways to try and respond to it, right? If you know the enemy team's going to drop a spellbreaker bubble on top of you, pull tome 2 instead of tome 3. But there are like other supports out there that rely less on the boons. Um, like the support Scrapper, like that's going to be more effective at like pulsing healing and like condition removal. The Shoutbreaker Warrior is going to be able to do a higher like burst healing. Like Kataris, when she uses one of her shouts, that's like 4K healing for everyone around her. The Guardian, you're bringing a lot of sustained healing. You're bringing a lot of protection. You are protecting people rather than just like healing them outright. So try and make that like the goal front and center in your mind is to
Okay.
protect your teammates rather than just heal them outright. So yeah, if it's a group and they're not dying, it's probably because they have a lot of boons that aren't being removed, or they have a very like robust support with like 3 or 4 different meta healers all working with each other. Okay, right on. I think that's going to bring everything to a close for today. We're all gonna swap down now to the squad chat for our regularly scheduled raid, but I'm gonna turn my OBS off before we do. Thank you all for coming to the lesson today.